Hello everybody, it's me, Ghost Critic, and I bet you forgot all about this series, didn't you? I nearly did. It's Longbox history, back again, and we're up to the letter U, and it's a big one, which is why there's going to be multiple parts to this. But I thought I'd do this big bulk first because it is from 2001. Ultimate X-Men. This was the reimagining, kind of modernisation of the X-Books, and gave them a fresh new start for new readers coming in who didn't want to be bogged down by all the history of the X-Men regular 616 universe. So, initial run by Mark Millar. Haven't got issue 1, but issue 2, which was the Tomorrow People, which is basically just a setting up of the team and the idea of the Sentinels. Issue 6, and so it's issue 1, issue 3, issue 4, issue 5 are the only ones I'm missing, which I look out for, but they are actually quite expensive. So once we'd set the team up, we got to a storyline return to Weapon X in issue 7, and this was Xavier and the X-Men getting kidnapped, and Wolverine having to kind of take sides with the Brotherhood of Mutants, because he was kind of playing both sides kind of thing at the time, and go and rescue them. Issue 10, issue 11, some great covers. Here, Adam Kubert there. Issue 12. Then we had a short introduction to Gambit. Just a quick 2-issue story arc from him. Then we kind of got into the World Tour storyline from issue 15, where the X-Men are pretty much light, to be honest, and they're going and doing all these press conferences and magazine covers, etc. But in the background, we get introduced to David Proteus, who is the son of Xavier and Moira McTaggart. In the regular universe, he was Legion, so he was quite a powerful mutant, and this is the team taking him down. We get introduced to Betsy Braddock in this storyline. And it was in this storyline that we get the first clue, first hint that our Ultimate Universe Colossus is gay. On to Hellfire and Brimstone from issue 21, 5-part series. This is more about the Phoenix and Jean Grey, and the Hellfire Club are introduced to our Ultimate Universe. Issue 24 and 25. Now, they did a couple of crossovers with other Ultimate versions of our regular 616. So this was a crossover from the Ultimates and Ultimate X-Men, which was called Ultimate War. Basically, the X-Men were kind of treated as traitors. They were set up, and so it's basically a big fight, smackdown between the two teams in this 4-issue. Oh, I thought it was 5. No, it's only 4. But great Bocello art in that series. And then Mark Millar's final run, final story arc for Ultimate X-Men before he passed on the mantle was Return of the King. Way back in the first series, the first story arc, Magneto is presumed dead, but we find out later on that Xavier didn't actually kill him, but he's been trying to rehabilitate him, obviously with disastrous results. And yes, we get Magneto returning and causing merry heck, basically. So yes, Mark Millar really actually quite good stories. Sherwin Millard doesn't have to just write about blood and guts and swear all over the place to put out a good storyline. Then for about a year, I think it was, Brian Michael Bendis took over for a short time, and obviously he was writing, or well, always wrote Ultimate Spider-Man, so of course his story arc was going to have the webhead in there, and this was someone trying to kill Wolverine, and we got obviously Spider-Man in there, and we also got to see our ultimized version of Daredevil. Six-part series there. And then Bendis decided, after quite a while, we hadn't really been introduced to many new mutants, so in his New Mutants storyline, he decided to throw a few new in. So we got Angel, we had Dazzler, Emma Frost, we see a bit more of her, and she's working at her own academy and has her own kind of mutant team, and it has Scott's brother Alex Summers as part of that team. Which led us up to issue 45. So yeah, Bendis finished off his run there, and then we got Brian K. Vaughan, who did a lot of shorter storylines for the Ultimate X-Men. So we had, our first one was The Tempest, and we got introduced to our Ultimate Sinister, Nathaniel Essex. Then Crywolf, where we got a little bit more about the kind of the Gambit and Rogue love interest. Despite the fact that this was a kind of new universe, they did kind of tread the same ground, the same storylines as our regular 616. They just used a much more modern version of it, with a twist or two there and about. He then went on to write The Most Dangerous Game, and here we have the Ultimates version of Mojo, who has the island Krakoa, and on this island convicted mutant felons are basically fighting for survival and their freedom, and this is when we get Longshot, who is accused of assassinating, I think it was some sort of dignitary. So our current X-Men team decide to go and try and save him. Quick one-shot story featuring Xavier on there, nothing really much of interest. Also Shock and Awe, two-parter, a little bit of kind of Wolverine and Storm getting a little bit closer, which they really shouldn't have been doing, because Storm was apparently in love with the Beast. And Vaughan finished his tenure on the Ultimate X-Men with Magnetic North, and this showed a lot more of Emma Frost's team, which included Havoc and Polaris, North Star, Sunspot, Cypher and Cannonball. Again, we get a little brief cameo from Ultimates. Polaris is set up. And with issue 65, that finished Brian K. Vaughan off on Ultimate X-Men. Then the last biggest kind of name, I suppose, to go on the Ultimate X-Men was Robert Kirkman. He started off, I mean, this, to be honest, it's sad to say, but this is when the series kind of started to decline, and the stories kind of got shorter and more nonsensical. Date Night was, I think it was a three-part storyline of just kind of like the social lives of our Ultimate X-Men team. Then we had Phoenix with a question mark on the end, and Kirkman introduced the Shi'ar cult in, and Lilandra. She came along to find out if Jean Grey really was this deity, the Phoenix, or if she was just a little bit of a crazy mixed up chick, to be honest. Then we had Magical, a throwaway story if ever there was. This character here, Magical, supposedly had been on the team since day one, but he's somehow manipulated the X-Men to join the team. Again, not very well explained. Annual number 2 came in there. And then he introduced Cable and Bishop and managed to kill off Xavier at the end of this story arc. You might notice, if you can see down there, Yannick Paquette on artwork. Now over on DC doing Swamp Thing, so I don't really think you could get that much more different. Yannick Paquette did a little bit of writing here, the aftermath of the death of Xavier and how it affected the whole team. We found Beast died many story arcs ago, but surprisingly you're not going to keep a character like the Beast dead, so we find out in issue 81 that he is actually alive and working with, of all people, Emma Frost. The underneath, issue 82, introduced the Morlocks. Like I said, this is when it all kind of really started going downhill. Not that great at story arcs. Issue 84, this is the Sentinel storyline. Bishop has now kind of become leader of the team, and we've got, there's Dazzler and Angel who start a kind of romance going on there. Pyro, who's actually on the good side. And if I remember rightly, I think this was Quanon, because Betsy Braddock died in the World Tour storyline, but just as in the 616, the kind of psyche of Betsy Braddock jumped into this new character. Issue 89, a one-shot kind of storyline introducing the Shadow King. And then his final story arc for Ultimate X-Men was called Apocalypse. And this is kind of Sinister turning into Apocalypse from what I can remember. And it was all mightily strange and weird and nonsensical, and in the end the Phoenix came about again and put everything right again. Finally, and this poor writer had to pick up the pieces of, you know, a dying title, to be honest. This was Coletti, and this is basically the end of the Ultimate Universe, March on Ultimatum. And I just really couldn't even begin to remember, or I think want to remember, what actually happened at the end of this, apart from obviously pretty much every single X-Men died in rather gruesome and terrible ways. And that was finally the last issue of the series, with issue 100. We had Ultimate X-Men Requiem at the end. Poor Coletti didn't really get much of a fair shake at the end of that. There was a few tie-ins as well. Ultimate Nightmare, again with some of the Ultimates joining up with some of our X-Men. It was a 5-issue series. March and Ultimatum gave a kind of crossover annual with the Fantastic Four, so you have the X-Men side and the Fantastic Four side. And just before our new Ultimate Comics X-Men, we had the Ultimate X. These were the new Young Mutants. with some lovely Adams art there. Our new kind of Jean Grey in new body. It's strange because none of these characters have really been used. I mean, that's the Blob, kind of young, fat teenager, basically. And it finished in issue 5. Didn't really do very well, especially at coming out on time, to be honest. So I think, if I'm right, that was all my Ultimate X-Men comics. So there are still some more used to come. You can only imagine how much Uncanny X-Men I've got. So look out for those very soon.